but I don't know. Are there ways to sign it?
There actually is. There's, I think it's called Autograph, and it's something that I've not done one yet, but I've signed up for it. You can actually have your digital books signed as long as the author is a member of that group.
Doesn't that mess up the iPad or, getting that ink on there?
I honestly have no clue.
Yeah, you got to take the rubbing alcohol to get the Sharpie off of the,
Yeah, it's kind of, what's the point then?
It's almost like you've been talking to my kids using my iPad.
So, and you said you're heavily involved in social media. How has that helped with your book?
For small market or self-published, it's invaluable. I started, and that was another comment that Linda Goen and Lynn Tincher, who was with Otherworld Publications, who was originally going to first publish the book, and then they had to close due to personal reasons. But I started 8 months before my book coming out, making contacts on Twitter, on Facebook, and then, of course, writing a regular blog. There is no doubt if you're going to be an author, and again, self-published or small press, you have to have a blog where you do a couple posts a week. You have to have a Twitter reach out, and you have to have a Facebook authors page.
Sure.
And so what I started with Twitter 8 months before my book came out was finding other writers, other publishers, other editors, following their Twitter feed, making comments. I mean, if you show up the day your book comes out and said, hey, read my book, would you please tweet it? Well, who's going to do that?
Right.
But if you've shown over the course of months that you'll support somebody else's product and tweet their book out, reply, and give intelligent conversation on blogs. They don't want to just stop by and say, hey, I think this is great. They want to know that you've actually read the blog post and that you've got something to contribute. And when you do that, so when my book came out, the example I would use is USA Today bestselling author Jamie Lee Scott. I helped to do some crowdfunding for an independent movie. She has an award-winning screenplay that was turned into a movie. And when she asked me to contribute, I did. And then she said, in return, when your book comes out, for a solid week, I'll tweet it out every couple hours for a whole week. And she did, and my sales took off. But that's because I've been supportive for the 8 months previous.
Right.
And so she knew that I would support her work, and it's a collaborative effort. And I've read a lot of articles on how to build a Twitter following particularly Twitter's been the most successful part I've used. And just getting followers for the sake of having followers is pointless. You want people who are going to be interested in your book, so finding people who read your genre, following authors who write your kind of books. Mm-hmm. And then when people, read supernatural thrillers and they say, well, hey, look, this guy's got a book, and they'll check your work out. But social media, if you're going to sell books, now you have the occasional home run, like 50 Shades of Grey, which is fan fiction that goes off to be a New York Times bestseller, and that's great. But for every 50 Shades of Grey, there's 100,000 other books that never get seen.
Yeah.
So
there's those other 49 Shades of Grey that didn't do so well.
That's exactly it. So it's invaluable to do social media as a self-publisher or small press author.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's great advice for anybody starting out too. I think it sounds like you did all the kind of the groundwork necessary to kind of build this up. And I've seen the exact thing that you're talking about, where people just go on there the day of and say, hey, look at me, and you've built those relationships first. So that's really smart.
Well, I've had other authors ask me, so my book is as good as yours, and I've worked really hard on it. Yet you're selling books and I'm not. And I'm like, well, what have you done on Twitter? What have you done to promote your book? Where have you gone to do book signings? Well, I haven't done any of that. Well, then you wonder why, with another million people selling books, why you're not selling any. If you don't raise your hand and say, hey, look at me, it's not going to work. But you also have to do it in a very intelligent manner. Can't be scattershot. So I came up with a media plan as far as how to go about doing it, and I've stuck to it. And it's amazing what you don't think about becoming a writer that you have to do. And like the social media or the book signings, all the other stuff, doing interviews like this.
Right.
You've got to do things that get your work in front of people's eyeballs. And if you stay back in your chair and do nothing, well, then no one's going to see it.
Well, I think that's really interesting that you've kind of taken the role as a marketer. I mean, you're doing your own brand management, which I think is very interesting, and I think is probably a really good advantage for you over some other people getting started. As a matter of fact, I think that's another idea for you to do. I think you could probably teach people how to do this. I mean, I think you could easily do a small course on getting started on something like this. I mean, that'd be something I would be interested in. I've always wanted to write a book. I know Chris has talked about it. We want to do more like script writing and movie writing and things, but all the advice you've given so far translates easily.
It does, as well as cases where, again, I've actually got several writers that I do the social networking for them. I use a product called Hootsuite to help manage your day, because quite frankly, you don't want to spam people. You want your stuff spaced out. And there's several programs that you can use. I just fell into using Hootsuite. But because of that, I manage my pages, Facebook, Twitter, and blog. I manage her social networking, and that's how we get things done. So, but it's something we're doing.
Oh, definitely. Now, I know we've talked previously about how the music you listen to while you write, it kind of inspires you and plays a big part of it. What did you listen to while writing The Hand of God?
Dude, it depends on what I was writing. If I'm writing action, I'm listening to up-tempo stuff. But for example, I've been writing a lot of dark action sequences, so I've been listening to things like Devils and Dust by Bruce Springsteen. I listen to a lot of noir kind of jazzy, bluesy kind of stuff. When I'm writing some of the more humorous stuff, I'll listen to light country. So for me, it just depends on the mood. But I listen to a lot of up-tempo stuff or action stuff. But it just depends. But particularly a lot lately, because I've just finished the big battle sequence at the end of the book, and there's a lot of dark things that happen. It's definitely noir. So I listen to a lot of bluesy type stuff.
So is your playlist like action sequence? So you have.
I actually have one called Noir. I actually have one called Up Tempo. So it's funny because I was at and the other thing is, modern, you're no longer tied to just a laptop. I keep a mini iPad and a Bluetooth keyboard, so I can write anywhere. And I took some headphones, and the girls wanted to go to the swimming pool this summer, and I got my headphones on, and I'm just jamming, my head's bobbing, and my fingers are just not slowing down. And when I stopped to go get something to drink, the lady next to me said, "Excuse me, how can you listen to music and type?" I went, "Well, I'm giving that little guy in the back of my head something to do, because my subconscious is back there going, hey, dude, I'm bored. Give me something." So I listen to music, and quite frankly, I will listen to the same songs, 6 songs on a playlist for hours on end, because I'm not really listening to it.
Right.
It's just the mood. But I was reading an article where Stephen King was talking about he listens to heavy metal when he writes. He closes the door and cranks it up, and it's Metallica and other stuff. And I'm like, no, I don't know how I can do that. But there's a lot of writers. Now, I've met other people that have to have it completely quiet. Don't want to hear anything. And I'm not that kind of person. I like noise. And so you can put me next to a jackhammer and I can write, because I can tune it out.
Well, we got my dog, I think. We might put you up to that challenge in a little bit.
That would be tough.
Yeah, we sent the dog out, the famous DTMMB Media dog. We had to send out for a walk because
we couldn't keep her quiet.
You were a former mailman, right?
That's it. Evidently, my voice is a dog whistle. As soon as I start speaking, the dog starts howling. So
I think you were speaking mailman or something, the natural enemy of the dog.
Now, you would think by this time my mailman-s would have worn off, but I guess not.
I'm thankful you didn't mace her, though, because I probably would have.
Well, this is funny. I will tell one quick postal service.
No, sure. No.
I had a thing of mace. I used it one time. I had a dog that kept trying to bite my tire, and I got stopped, and I sprayed the dog, and the dog started to sneeze and cough, and so I started laughing, and God, in his infinite sense of humor, changed the breeze, and it blew back in my face. I started sneezing and coughing, and I never used mace again. So I used it that one time on that one dog. I got my lesson. It went in the bag, and I never used it again.
And that's where you got the title of the book, because the hand of God came down there. And
well, it's funny, because I'm not even sure where I got that, because I decided, because again, that's the God's bounty hunter on earth. And I was just, and I went, the hand of God, that kind of works. I'm not even sure what the inspiration for that was. It just popped in my head the way I went.
God backwards dog.
Yeah, okay.
Well, there you go.
So there might be something there. Yeah.
And what about the Watchers, though? You did have inspiration for that, right?
I did. Well, again, doing research for the first book, I was just looking up everything, because, of course, obviously the first line of the book mentioned Satan. So I was looking up every Bible verse that dealt with Lucifer, Satan. And it's also amazing. I had to come up with a name for a group of Satanists. I came up with the Church of the Light Reclaimed. That was my 8th choice, because the first 7 were already chosen. And it's amazing how many groups like that exist. But when doing that, I came across a whole thing about fallen angels in the Book of Enoch, which is an apocryphal work. And I went, ooh, that would kind of be cool. So the idea for the Watchers, again, I read that one line and read the one thing, and the whole book popped into my head. So I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I was going to do with the characters. And so it was, for me, I'm very blessed when that happens. My inspiration, when it comes like that, it's fun.
I bet it is. Now, you mentioned Stephen King earlier, and I wanted to ask you, do you have any people that you look to as influences when you write?
Well, if you're going to be a writer and you're looking for a book on writing, Stephen King's book on writing is by far the best book you can buy. The first half of the book is about his journey to become a writer. The second half is what he calls his toolbox, what you need to do to be a good writer, and he gives you a lot of tips. For me personally, it was more about pacing. So Jim Butcher, who writes the Dresden novels, I consider to be a writing mentor, because when you read a Dresden novel, you can never stop at the end of a chapter. I mean, you just can't. You mean it pains you to put the book down because the pacing is so good. And so I consider that to be. And then my all-time favorite writer is Robert Frost. I became, in 6th grade, when I first started writing poetry, I was reading books on poetry, and I just think Robert Frost is just fantastic. So, but without a doubt, Jim Butcher would be what I would consider to be a writing mentor, even though we've never met. But his books influenced me. I said, that's the kind of book I want to write. I want to read a book that's fun, fast-paced, and where you just can't put it down. So
yeah, you had that going, and I could really kind of feel your, the Stephen King as far as the development of the characters, because that's something he does very well, and that's something you did very well. And one of the things I took away from the book is the characters, and I had them pictured in my head. And I know we had this conversation. Actually, this was kind of a comment on your blog that you mentioned. We were talking about who would you envision playing this part in a movie.
Let me guess. Vince said a young Jason Statham.
Actually, Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, wow.
We've discussed many times before as well.
Yeah.
And I actually thought about possibly Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. Somebody, because the character is a very large.
Well, that's one of the things my wife has
character.
talked about. Vic McCain is 6'6", and in the first book, almost 300 pounds. He's an offensive lineman. I figure it's time to give the offensive lineman some love. Now, he's slimmed down a little bit by book 2. He's down probably to about 270. So he's lost a few pounds, but he's a very large man. And my wife said, well, if you ever sell this to Hollywood, they're never going to find anybody to play him. And I'm like, well, if they write me a check, I don't care. They can put a midget in the role, but as long as I can find a way to make a living doing
like Tom Cruise.
It's like Tom Cruise
and Jack Reacher.
Yeah.
And quite
Jack Reacher,
frankly, I love the Reacher books, but when I went to go see the movie, I thought it was very well done. They got the essence of the character.
I agree. I've read quite a few of them myself. Really like that, and I love what you're saying there. Is very similar to what Lee Child said when they asked him, "How do you feel about the 5'7" Tom Cruise playing Jack Reacher?"
That's in heels too. 5'7",
exactly. And he said, it just means that I've got the world's biggest movie star playing my character.
And that's it. He's like, there's the movie Jack Reacher, and there's my book Jack Reachers, and the people know the difference.
Right.
People who read this genre, they're very intelligent. These are people that know what's what, and so I have no problems with making a character that. But in my head, and I grew up with a lot of people like Vic. Everybody who's a character in this book, including some of the bad guys, I've known people who they're based on. I mean, I've had someone come up and ask, is this character based on somebody we know? Yes. Who? Yes. Because you don't want to you don't want to go that far with it.
Sure.
But, and that's why I think it helps to make the characters real, because I wrote about people that I knew. I took what would basically be a good old boy, Oldham County redneck, and put him in a situation where here's your choices. What are you going to do? And that's kind of where the book came from.
Yeah, I really like the characters in it, and you could kind of tell some of them were really based on people you knew too, because there was just that personal touch to a lot of the characters, and it didn't have to go into a lot of detail to kind of pick up their personality, which was great. And the other thing about it is I think it's a great intellectual property in the fact that I could envision this as a movie. I can envision this as maybe a TV show. I can envision this as maybe like a graphic novel.
Well, Jamie Lee Scott, the first comment she made was it had the 4 things that Hollywood likes. It has blood, paranormal, it's noir, and it's funny. Because she really liked the dark humor in the book. And, I'm a smart ass, and so I like to read those kind of books. I think probably another a character that I like so much is the John Corey novels by Nelson DeMille. Those are fantastic books. And again, I like the humor in the books. Even when he's in a tough situation, he's still popping off. And that's what Vic does. I mean, Vic, you put a gun into his head, and he's still cracking wise because that's Vic. He'll go down with a smart mouth,
So we've talked a lot about it. Chris, it looked like you had a question there.
Oh no, I was just gonna you mentioned graphic novel, and I just think that the material seems to kind of lend itself to that.
It's something we'd like to look into. That's one of the things, and that's where the popularity of the book and the reviews that I've gotten and the response from people like Jamie Lee Scott. And that's why it's starting to pitch to go to a literary agent and to see if we can go to the next step, because we'd like to use it for other media, whether it be graphic novels, TVs, or movies. And I've been very blessed in that Hydra Publications has allowed me, if I sign with an agent, that I can have my rights back. So I can sell not only the second book, but sell the first book.
That's fantastic.
So,
I mean, that's pretty unique, I think, too. And
so if you're a literary agent and you're hearing this podcast, I'm in the market.
And you've got the trilogy, you've got the sequel to the sequel already sort of.
And that's the other thing, the other tip I would give writers. When I finished the first book, I took a few months off because I was just working on social media. you're getting the book out, and I should have started writing book 2 the day I finished book 1. And so when I finish book 2, I will start on book 3 the next day. So again,